advantage of the Christmas season by selling 50 books. If no one had the Christmas season could actually wish for. So on December the 22nd, 1972, that we accidentally discovered the Christmas Marathon in Los Angeles. Of course, we noticed a great increase in the number of people going into the streets, and the stores were staying open sometimes until midnight. I was standing in front of a Burbank Zodi's. This must be some kind of name of a shop. We were having an intense competition with prizes in Los Angeles, and it was building up to a feverish pitch. So after distributing madly all day long, I had collected about $350 and had distributed 650 magazines. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I was convinced this was the new world's record in ISKCON and that nobody was possibly going to beat me this day. Even though the store was open until 12, businesses had started slowing off, and I was thinking maybe I should go back. Undoubtedly, everyone is back already. No one has ever stayed out past 8 o'clock. They'll all be waiting up for me. I shouldn't keep them waiting up. So in this way, my mind was convincing me to go back. By 11 o'clock, the store was completely dead. I got in the car and started driving back. On the way back, I passed another. What was that? All right. I thought an alpaca had got in or something. On the way back, I passed another Zodi's called Hollywood Zodi's on Sunset and Western. I was torn whether to stop or not because that store was crowded and was going to be open. I went to return to the temple because I thought all the other devotees would probably walk past. So I just kept on driving. I finally arrived at the temple at about 10 to 12. I was first. I never instructed anyone to stay there. At about 1:30 in the morning, all the devotees had returned, and we were all sitting around looking at the sign on the map. We were so excited to go out. We were walking the bank different souls to distribute books to. Our noise and raucous laughter. Karandar, who was sleeping in his office in the next room. He came stumbling in, wiping the sleep from his eyes, but when he saw us and saw what was going on, he burst out laughing and sent us all to bed, saying, "Get ready for tomorrow." So in this way we performed the 3-day marathon, December 22nd, 23rd and 24th. No one had ever distributed as many books before in the history of our movement. A big day had been considered to be somewhere between 25 and 40 books, but we were distributing between 5,000 and 6,000 pieces of literature a day for a 3-day period. One temple had distributed almost 18,000 pieces of literature in just 3 days. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16, entitled King Chitraketu Meets the Lord, texts 53 and 54. Sushupta Purusho Yata Sushupta Purusho Vishvam Pashyati Chatmani Vishvam Pashyati Chatmani Atmanam Ekadeshastam Manyate Swapna Utita Evam Jagaranadini Jivastanani Chatmana Maya Matra Vigyaya Maya Matrani Vigyaya Tad Drashtaram Param Smarit Yata Shushupta Purusho Vishvam Pashyati Chatmani Atmanam Ekadeshastam Manyate Swapna Utita Evam Jagaradnadini Jivastanani Chatmana Maya Matrani Vigyaya Tadrastaram Param Smarit Yata Shushupta Purusho Vishvam Pashyati Chatmani Atmanam Ekadeshastam Manyate Swapna Utita Evam Jagaranadini Jivastanani Chatmana Maya Matrani Vigyaya Tadrastaram Param Smarit Yata Sushupta Purusho Vishvam Pashyati Chatmani Atmanam Ekadeshastam Manyate Swapna Utita Evam Jagaranadini Jivastanani Chatmana Maya Matrani Vigyaya Tadrashtaram Param Smarit. Please chant.
Yata susukta purusho vishvam pashyati chatmani atmana vikadeshastam manyate svapna buddhika evam jagaranadi jivasthanani chatmana Maya Matrani Vidyaya
Yata, just as Shushupta, sleeping, Purusha, a person, Vishvam, the whole universe, Pashyati, perceives, Cha, also, Atmani, in himself, Atmanam, himself, Ekadeshastam, lying down in one place, Manyate, he considers, Swapne, in the dreaming condition, Utita, waking up, Evam, in this way, Jagaran Adini, the states of wakefulness and so on, Jivastanani, the living entities, different conditions of existence, Cha, also, Atmana, over the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maya Matrani, the exhibitions of the illusory potency. Vigyaya, knowing. Tat, of them. Drastaram, the creator or seer of all such conditions. Param, the supreme. Smarit, one should always remember. Translation. When a person is in deep sleep, he dreams and sees in himself many other objects, such as great mountains and rivers, or perhaps even the entire universe, although they are far away. Sometimes, when one awakens from a dream, he sees that he is in a human form, lying in his bed in one place. Then he sees himself, in terms of various conditions, as belonging to a particular nationality, family, and so on. All the conditions of deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness are but energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should always remember the original creator of these conditions, the Supreme Lord, who is unaffected by them. Please repeat. When a person is in deep sleep, he dreams and sees in himself many other objects, such as great mountains and rivers, or perhaps even the entire universe, although they are very far away. Sometimes when one awakens from a dream, he sees that he is in a human form, lying in his bed in one place. Then he sees himself, in terms of various conditions, as belonging to a particular nationality, family, and so on. All the conditions of deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness are but energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should always remember the original creator of these conditions, Supreme Lord, who is unaffected by them. Srila Prabhupada's purport. None of these conditions of the living entities, namely deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness, is substantial. They are simply displays of various phases of conditional life. There may be many mountains, rivers, trees, bees, tigers, and snakes that are situated far away, but in a dream one may imagine them to be nearby. Similarly, as one has subtle dreams at night, when the living entity is awake, he lives in gross dreams of nation, community, society, possessions, skyscrapers, bank balance, position, and honor. Under the circumstances, one should know that his position is due to his contact with the material world. One is situated in different positions in various forms of life that are all work under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate actor, and the conditioned living entities should simply remember this original actorship. As living entities, we are being carried away by the waves of Prakriti or nature, which works under the Lord's direction. Maya te prakriti sute sacharacharam. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings Pichi Maya Vashi Yachi Veshi Kachu Habidubu Bhai. Why are you being carried away by the waves of lucid energy in various phases of dream and wakefulness? These are all creations of Maya. Our only duty is to remember the Supreme Director of this illusory energy, Krishna. For us to do this, the Shastra advises us Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Kevalam. One should constantly chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Supreme Lord is realized in three different phases as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But Bhagavan is the ultimate realization. One who realizes Krishna is the most perfect Mahatma, Vasudeva Savam Iti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabhaha. In the human form of life, one should understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for then one will understand everything else. Yasmin Vigyati Sarvam Evam Vigyatam Bhavati. According to this Vedic injunction, simply by understanding Krishna, one understands Brahman, Paramatma, Prakriti, the lucid energy, the spiritual energy, and everything else. Everything will be revealed. Prakriti, the material nature, is working under direction of the Supreme Lord. We living entities are being carried away by various phases of Prakriti. The self-realization, one should always remember Krishna as stated in Prana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare When a person is in deep sleep, he dreams and sees in himself many other objects, such as great mountains and rivers, or perhaps even the entire universe, although they are far away. Sometimes when one awakens from a dream, he sees that he is in a human form lying in his bed in one place. Then he sees himself in terms of various conditions as belonging to a particular nationality, family, and so on. All the conditions of deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness are but energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should always remember the original creator of these conditions, Supreme Lord, who is unaffected by them. Prabhupada talks about three different stages of consciousness, which is deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness. And so in one lecture, Srila Prabhupada was talking about how devotees have to regulate their activities because if we, Krishna talks about this in Bhagavad Gita, one should not sleep too much or sleep too little, eat too much or not eat enough, if one wants to be steady in their practice of devotional service. Because if we don't sleep enough, then the mind can become very powerful. We had one devotee who was having trouble sleeping, and he came to the point where he was thinking, I'm just going to give up sleeping. And the next minute he was fast asleep. And we had another devotee, I remember, in Chaitanya College. It was back to Jake. He was accustomed to sleeping 12 hours a day. And try as he may, Maharaj might remember we shared the same room. I don't know if you were there at the time when Back to Jake was there. He was the son of the singer Paul Jones from Manfred Mann. Yeah, so Back to Jake, he was such a great devotee of Tamas Gun before he joined. And try as he may, he just couldn't manage on 6 hours sleep. We had, in the Back to program, we had these little desks, just a little bit lower than this desk here. And we'd sit cross-legged at the desk. And every now and again, you'd hear this noise, which would be, and it would be his head banging off the desk. And then, of course, he'd stand up. And I remember once also standing, he was standing and he fell over right on top of all the devotees in the temple. So at that point, the Baptist leaders realized that, no amount of arrangement is going to keep him awake, so we need to give him some more sleep. And we asked him, so how do you feel, when you were used to sleeping 12 hours a day? Did you wake up feeling your fresh? And he says, no, I was very tired. So no matter how much sleep you get, you never actually feel necessarily replenished. So the idea is that we have to regulate and we have to control the mind. So the regulation of the eating and sleeping, that helps control the mind. There was another occasion where the devotees were having a prasadam feast and Prabhupada was personally present there. And the devotees would do this. They'd have like a gulab eating competition. And there was big stalwarts like Brahmananda Swami, who was well known for respecting prasadam in large amounts. And eventually all the devotees ate themselves to sleep They fell asleep and they woke up and they found that Prabhupada was still eating. He'd beat everybody. And he said, I can eat more than you, and I can also eat less than you. And Prabhupada wasn't, he could have kept eating all the time because he wasn't just saying it as like grub or scran or some mundane thing. And devotees mentioned whenever they ate Prabhupada's cooking, they never felt like blown out. They always felt so energized. So the regulation in these activities is very important. So when Prabhupada talks about these 3 phases of wakefulness, deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness, so he's comparing this to material existence. So just like sometimes you fall asleep and you have a dream, have you ever experienced that you fall asleep and you have a dream and it seems to be going on for ages and you wake up and you realize only a few minutes have passed? So it's a perception of time. And similarly, the living entity, when we're in this material world, there's a term called nityabada, which means eternally conditioned. And so some people mistakenly misunderstand that this nityabada means that we were always conditioned and we're coming out of this conditioning finally. But Prabhupada explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that nityabada means since time immemorial. So although just like someone may be sleeping for a long time, like I remember one devotee also, when we lived at the manor, he went to bed after the Christmas marathon. He put in a total stellar effort on the marathon, amazing effort in Sankirtan, and he went to bed on the last day of the marathon, and then he got up, what he thought was the next day, but actually he'd missed a full day. He was probably up and down, but he can't remember losing that day fully. So when we're in a sleeping condition, we're not aware of the passing of time. So and then there's dreaming condition. The perception of time is very different from reality. But when we wake up, Prabhupada says regarding this nityabada, that when we wake up from this nityabada, we realize that actually we were never nityabada. We were always eternally perfect, just temporarily we'd been covered. And in the space of eternity, there's no measurement of eternity without beginning, without end. Prabhupada also mentions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that because we think in terms of today, yesterday and tomorrow, we lose our sense of eternality. But the soul is throughout this wakefulness, dreaming and deep sleep, and then from deep sleep we go into wakefulness and then back to deep sleep, back to dreaming and then wakefulness. Throughout this, the soul is existing, the soul is continually existing, but our perception is that we think in terms of yesterday, today and tomorrow. But actually there is only eternal existence. So in that sense, this material world, we are heavily conditioned to think in terms of beginning, middle and end. But actually there's only eternal existence, and this material world is simply a little dark cloud in the sky of the spiritual world. And it is temporarily manifest at times, and then temporarily again unmanifest. So to remember that all these wonderful phenomena of the material world, the cosmic manifestation, is simply emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadi Radhir Govinda, Sarvakarna Karnam. So Prabhupada explains that if we trace all the causes, we finally understand that the cause of everything is coming from Krishna. Sometimes atheistic people, they would pose a smart question, or what they think is smart. They say, well, if God is the origin of everything, then who made God? Or if God created everything, then who created God? And they think, okay, we've got you stumped because everything has to be created. But this is frog in the well mentality. They think because my experience is that everything's created, then somebody must create God, and then that means that person must be God, and then someone must create that God. So in one sense, it's a good question, but we have to be able to trace it back, and we see that there has to be a cause of all causes. So just like in their Big Bang Theory, you see, well, in the beginning there was an infinitely dense, infinitesimal particle which somehow or another exploded. came from that. So then the question to us would be the same question they asked us, so what caused that? We say what caused God, so we say, well, what caused the Big Bang? If everything was nothing or everything was a dense particle, where did the dense particle come from? What would cause something to change? Something would have to be some kind of cause. But we can answer that Krishna is the cause of all causes, the original person, from whom all other persons have come. And this is mentioned in Srimad. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva. The personality of God is perfect and complete, and because He's completely perfect, all emanations from Him make such hands that this phenomenal world is perfect. Whatever is produced of the complete is also complete in itself, and because He's complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains complete balance. So, with people who are heavily conditioned to the material concept of life, then they cannot understand himself, and he can emanate many things and yet not diminish himself in any way. For many years we would go to the north of Scotland doing Sankirtan, sometimes in the Christmas Marathon, but also other occasions on travelling Sankirtan, when we used to do the Every Town and Village programme. And there was this old biker that I used to meet in Elgin. He'd come inching down the street. He'd been in a terrible bike accident and he could hardly walk. He'd kind of walk sideways in a very, very slow shuffle, and he was a bit kind of crooked in his face. But he was actually intelligent, a very intelligent person. So the first time I met him was in 1988 when we first went up there in Every Town and Village, and I gave him a sense of self-realisation. And then every year I'd go up there, I'd meet him. Somehow or another, Krishna arranged that when I was on the street there, he'd show up. And it seemed he was well known by people. His name was Robbie. And every year he'd come up with some new philosophy. He'd say, "Oh, Prana, what about this one?" And he'd come up and say, "Well, there might have been a God, but now God is manifest all over the cosmic manifestation, so therefore there's no longer God." And I says, that's called God is dead philosophy. He says, I thought I'd got a new philosophy. I said, no, there's nothing new under the sun. I said, and if you read all these books, you'll see that Prabhupada, he addresses each and every one of these philosophies. And this is the wonderful thing about Srila Prabhupada's books. Whatever doubts you have, when you read them, they're eradicated. And then doubts you didn't even know you had, or bogus philosophies which exist out there, you may come across. Prabhupada already proactively takes it apart. And so, as Prabhupada said himself, there is no competition, there's no comparison of this Vedic literature. When you read these books, then there's no need to read anything else. I had this experience before I joined. I came across some Back to Godhead magazine, and my brother-in-law had a Bhagavad Gita. Although I was looking at various other different ways of life, philosophies, religions, etc. And when I read Bhagavad Gita, it seemed very definitive, and it seemed very authoritative, but I didn't want to just jump in with both feet. So I continued reading other things I was reading, but what I found was interesting was that by reading Bhagavad Gita, then it started to illuminate the truths and half-truths and gaps and other things I was reading. And eventually all I was left was reading was the Bhagavad Gita. Same with, I had a music collection of albums and tapes, etc. And when I got the Golden Avatar, Change of Heart by Mangalananda, and the Goddess of Fortune album, after listening to them, then gradually these were the only two things I could listen to, because everything else seemed to have no meaning to it. And this is the wonder of Krishna consciousness that brings meaning into our life. It gives us purpose. And that purpose is prema, pamartha mahan, to develop pure love for God. Srila Prabhupada says that love is not just a feeling. So there may be some feelings as a result of love, but he says it has to be demonstrated by action. If you love someone and say, okay, we say we love Krishna, but then we don't follow his directions, then how can we say we love him? If we say we love Prabhupada, we don't follow his directions. So that is, Prabhupada said that one of his final comments was, you prove your love by how you cooperate. So that means hearing regularly Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees and discussing these things, and so that we can have a better understanding. When the devotees are discussing these transcendental literatures, then Krishna's presence is there and he's helping the devotees understand. So whether we're able to attend class personally or whether we can attend online, even if somehow or another you have some not such good regulation, if you happen to get up at the crack of noon instead of the crack of dawn, then somewhere in the world there's Mangalarti going on. Somewhere in the world someone's giving Bhagavatam class. So there's still opportunity. This is a wonder of technology, modern day technology. We can use it in Krishna's service for our benefit. And Krishna very kindly explains this in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Devotional Service, that he says that if you cannot do this, do that. If you cannot do that, do this. You can't do this, do that. So he's basically, he's creating an entry level for all sorts of levels of devotees. But he doesn't say they're all the same. He says, but better than that is that, and better than that is that, and better than that is that. So he's also saying that there is a difference, although it's all devotional service, all connecting through back to yoga with the Lord, then there is a difference in terms. It's not like someone who bought a book is necessarily equal to someone who just distributed 10,000 books and has been reading for 20 years. So according to our surrender, Krishna will reward accordingly. So, and if we want to understand Krishna more and more, then Tesham Satatayuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvakam Dadami Bidiyogam Tam Yenamama Piyantate. To those who are constantly devoted to serve me with love, I give the understanding with which to come to me. So to serving me with love, it's not just work. If we see devotional service as work, that's a mundane point of view. It's a mundane look at things. So in order to see devotional service as something other than just work, then we have to be regularly reading, chanting, and particularly hearing in the association of devotees. In this way, we're always inspired and encouraged as to what is the purpose behind what we're doing. If we simply stay asleep in class all the time, or we don't attend class, or we're doing something else when class is on, our mind is distracted, or in japa, if we're just going through the mechanics of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the mind's on automatic, just going somewhere else, then we're not really there. So it's got to be more than just physically attending. We have to be bringing our consciousness in. And Krishna explains that in Bhagavad Gita, wherever the mind wanders, bring it back under the control of the higher self. So because we've been in the material world for such a long time, naturally the mind isn't going to, it's not going to behave itself straight away. It's going to take some time. And therefore Rupa Goswami says one of the qualifications for, or one of the requirements for success in devotional service is patience. And we have to learn to accept that which is favourable for devotion and service, and then reject that which is unfavourable. So Srila Prabhupada talks about this dreaming here, just like he gives an example that in a dream you'll be being chased by a tiger, and it seems very real. Chaitanya College, where we stayed at in the early days, it wasn't uncommon to have nightmares because of some subtle living entities who would enjoy trying to create fear in the devotees. And but when you wake up from that, because the devotees are actually very much aware of that, then even within their sleep they chant Hare Krishna. Whereas normally people, when they fall asleep and they have a dream, like some kind of nightmare, they believe in it, they wake up crying or in a pool of sweat or screaming or something. But the devotees, their consciousness becomes so elevated that when they see something in a dream which is not even favourable for Krishna consciousness, start chanting Hare Krishna. Or even within their dreams, they're dreaming about serving Krishna. Often I've heard devotees talking in their sleep, stopping people on the street on Sankirtan. I heard one devotee selling books in his sleep. He's going, "Excuse me, yeah, take a book, good idea." He says, "Well, can I pop you down for 2 or squeeze you in for a 5? Even one devotee, I remember he used to sit up in bed, like that, trying to stop people, but he wasn't sleeping, and he'd go back down again. So when devotees are intensely engaged in devotional service, then even their dreams, Krishna appears through service, through the spiritual master, through devotees, kirtan, etc. And sometimes the Lord will instruct. One devotee asked Prabhupada, when the spiritual master, because generally also Prabhupada says we don't take dreams too seriously, because typically it's mode of ignorance time, so we should be careful what we believe in those times. But one devotee asked him, if the spiritual master appears to you in a dream, should we take that seriously? He says, if the spiritual master is instructing you in Krishna consciousness, yes, but if you're instructing the spiritual master, then no. So if in your dream you find yourself instructing your Guru Maharaj, then don't take that seriously. So Prabhupada, he quotes this one line from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Radha Krishna Bal Bal Bolore Sabai bhajan here. Meche Maya Vashe Yachi Beshi Kachu Habidubu Bai. Why are you being carried away by the waves of illusory energy in various phases of dreaming and wakefulness? So in our dream we imagine ourselves to be something, but when we're awake, then we assume once again our identity, just like Srila Prabhupada was mentioned in the purport, that we assume as soon as we awake, then the material condition comes in. I'm Scottish, I'm English, I'm Mexican, I'm black, white, yellow, male, female, dog, cat, human. And similarly, when we wake from this illusion of Maya, then we remember, actually, I'm eternal servant of Krishna. So it's forgetfulness, forgotten Krishna, we fallen souls, pay most heavily illusions tolls. Darkness around, all untrace, the only hope is divine grace. So we cannot wake from this deep sleep of Maya. Maya's got us under a spell, and we cannot break that spell ourselves. Being under the spell, then only when someone breaks that spell, then can we be awakened. So just like the typical way of waking up in the morning, unless you're deaf, is by using an alarm clock. Unless some devotees are so regulated that they don't even hear the alarm clock, they get up before the alarm clock. I remember I was so averse to hearing that dreadful sound of the alarm clock that I was able to wake up before it went off. And this is what happens, the body becomes regulated. So in the beginning it requires a lot of pushing to become regulated, but after much pushing, then even the body and the mind start to fall into place, and they become favourable things for devotional service, even though we may not be in such a favourable position being in the material world. And devotees, we all have our own ailments, we all have our own limitations and challenges. And one devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, because of my past activities, I'm very compromised and be able to think straight or offer devotional service. And Prabhupada says, just make the best use of a bad bargain. So whatever our situation is, we just try to do the best with it. We can't, if once a milk's spilt, you can't unspill it. So we just have to, whatever's left there, use that in Krishna service. So in this way, Prabhupada was always encouraging the devotees, whatever they could do, then do that in Krishna service. And if people don't want to do anything, then that is their right. They have the right to choose. We can try to encourage them, but if they don't want to do it, or they place too many conditions which we can accommodate, then that's a choice people have. So Prabhupada says that just when your head has been, this song, Radha Krishna Bal Bal Balori Subai, when your head has been put under water or when you're drowning, then you're experiencing some great difficulty. And when your head comes above the water, then you're thinking, oh, I'm enjoying. This is very nice. Now I'm gasping for air. See, this is material pleasure. We're sometimes drowning, sometimes coming up, sometimes happiness, sometimes distress. Actually, there is no happiness. That's what Prana is his words. Actually, there is no happiness. Only relief. So our happiness in the material world is simply relief from material distress. But Krishna consciousness offers a positive happiness because it's uncovering the original nature of the soul, which is Sat Chid Ananda, eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. And so by the proper engagement of Krishna consciousness, proper application, then we will begin to experience more and more a higher taste, and simultaneously we'll be able to leave behind the things we're attached to. I remember when I first read Bhagavad Gita, we understood what we had to give up. Then amongst our friends we used to discuss, and we could realize that, you know, these things are right, they're true. These things are detrimental to our well-being. And we could never imagine how we could give up some of those things. But simply just by even thinking about it, then gradually you're able to give them up. And Srila Prabhupada says that, actually Krishna says that even if one is unable to follow this process, if they're not averse to it, then gradually they will also ultimately be able to come to the same destination. So therefore, in our attempt to engage others in devotional service, then some people may respond directly, automatically, consciously, that, oh yeah, I've been looking for a Bhagavad Gita for years, thanks very much. And others may be just happy to give a donation, not really looking for a book, and just happy to help with some of our so-called charity work. That's how they see they want to do some kind of pious thing in life. So that whatever it is, then we try to engage that in Krishna's service so that people can become benefited. Because ultimately the devotees who are beginning to realize Krishna as the Param Dhamma, Param Ishwaram, as the Vasudeva Savamiti Saman Mahatma Sudurlabha, he's the source of everything. And because the devotees have become to realize this, then they become compassionate upon others, and they want to somehow or another bring Krishna into their lives too. So therefore we do Harinam. So whether people are willing or not, they get to hear the holy name, so that can awaken them. Sometimes they awaken quite nicely. Sometimes they awaken as if they got out the wrong side of transcendental bed because they're not so happy to hear the transcendental alarm clock. But still, they're getting that mercy. And even we've seen people who initially are inimical to the movement, then by the association of devotees, for example, devotees regularly on the street doing Sankirtan, sometimes people would become quite inimical to them, but eventually, you know, sometimes it would come to a head where they'd say, well, what are you guys doing anyway? And then they'd hear about it and then think, oh, that's not so bad. Or Krishna had arranged something that they're getting purified. There may be, just like ourselves, sometimes we experience, you know, things go well in Krishna consciousness, and sometimes it's a challenge we'd prefer to avoid. But each time we continue, regardless of the challenges, then we're making progress. And that's the same for the people out there. In the first canto, Srila Prabhupada explains that if one sees a devotee performing devotional service, they're automatically raised to the mode of goodness. So just by us going out trying to give Krishna consciousness, then people are getting elevated, not because of us, but because of what we're representing, because of what we're carrying, the message we're carrying with us. So even, I remember sometimes having some struggles on Sankirtan, but I thought, well, at least that verse kept me going, and at least if I can be out on the street and do one book, so that one person is going to get benefited. It might seem small on the score sheet, but it's big for the person who got the book. And invariably, you know, we have good days and bad days, you know, whether it's on Sankirtan or whether it's whatever devotional service we're doing, or trying to be a devotee in our family situations. There are struggles there. But if we just continue with our Krishna consciousness, despite whatever challenges are there, we're making advancement. And Srila Prabhupada says that devotional service begins when things are difficult, because we have to muster up some kind of devotion to do that. If it's all easy and we're just enjoying it, then it may not be on the same level of devotion as. So it's not just that we're a fair weather friend of Krishna. I'll serve Krishna when everything's hunky dory, when everything's going my way, but when it's not, then I give in. No, so determination is there. Bhogeshwayam prasaktanam tayaparita chetasam. That to not become distracted by bhoga and aishwarya, by sense enjoyment, by material opulence. So in this way, one become resolute in purpose. Ekeha kurunandana. One becomes resolute in purpose. Eka means one, single-pointed. So this is our constant endeavor as devotees or aspiring devotees, to always try to bring the mind back and focus on our sadhana, focus on our service, focus on the instructions given by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And in that way, gradually we awaken from this slumber of material existence, and we become reawakened to our original constitutional position. And the most important principle of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says here at the end of the purport, for self-realization, one should always remember Krishna. So what is that most important instruction? Always remember Krishna and never. Yep. As stated in Padma Prana, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. One should always remember Lord Vishnu. Vismartavyo na jatuchit. One should never forget the Lord. This is the perfection of life. So sometimes we're going through some difficulty, and we may think, oh, this Krishna consciousness is causing so much difficulty. But that's just like sometimes when we're taking medicines, things may get worse before they get better. Or the jaundice condition is considered when you take the sugar candy, then you might think, oh, the sugar candy is bitter, I better not take it. But actually by continuing to take it, we're getting, the bitter gets better, and eventually the natural relish of sweetness manifests. Now the sugar was always sweet, it's just our perception of it. So when we were struggling, then the answer is not less Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we try to rationalize why we have to cut back on Krishna consciousness, but we should actually increase our hearing, increase our chanting. So more Krishna consciousness is going to help the situation rather than less Krishna consciousness. And this way, the sooner we remember Krishna, the sooner that we will awaken from this material illusion. Okay, we'll just stop there. I'm going to get any questions or comments, please.
It seems in the text that it's bringing into question the whole concept of what reality is, because in the dream you think it's real, then you wake up, and then you realize it was a dream. And then when you become Krishna conscious, you realize that when you woke up, that was still a dream.
It was still a dream. Yeah, that can be the case. Sometimes in the material world, people are so intoxicated, they don't even know if they're awake or asleep. And I remember one time I was so tired driving back from Sankirtan, and I went to bed. But because I'd been fighting sleep on the way back for so long, then I went to bed dreaming of the white line of the road, and then I wasn't sure if actually I was dreaming of it or I was still driving and fell asleep. Anyway, I became so unsure of the situation that I thought, well, all I can do is chant Hare Krishna. So I just started chanting Hare Krishna, and then I woke up. At least I thought I had, but I continued to chant Hare Krishna because I thought, whether I've woken up well or not, then I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna, depend on Krishna for this. So this is a situation. Sometimes we think we've woken up. Just like one person who stayed here for a little while, they'd been chanting Hare Krishna and they felt that they'd awakened spiritually because they could see everybody's faults. And I said, but actually, the more advanced devotee, and they thought they were more advanced than everyone. It says actually the more advanced devotee sees the more of the good. They don't see all the faults. They see the faults of their own, but they see the good of others. So the awakening process had begun, but we have to continue with it. So even when we may think that we've awoken to some degree, then we still keep on chanting. So just like there's this term sahajism, sometimes people, they jump off the bus before they get to the final destination. You know, like say you're going to the city centre of Edinburgh, instead of getting off at Waverley, you get off at Haymarket, you still get quite a long walk to go. So people cash in quickly, I'm in Edinburgh, I'll just jump out. So we make some spiritual advancement and think, oh, that'll do, and now I'm such an advanced person. So this is sahajism. What was it called? Prema too early. Is it Janananda Maharaj that uses that term? Prematurely. Prema too early. So they try to, they think they've experienced in prema. But Srila Prabhupada, he also warns us against this, as a pure devotee doesn't like to exhibit ecstatic symptoms, you know, in order to gain some followers. But Sahaja will do that. They'll be looking for some recognition. They're looking for some kind of validation from others. And so when Prabhupada says work now, samadhi later, then from that, the context of that is that he's given everything for us to go back home to Godhead. We don't have to become overly concerned. If we're fully engaged in devotional service, then automatically, you know, if we're doing our duty, then automatically it's going to result in going back to Godhead. So, but if anyone else would like to give any comment or answer on that, I'd be happy to hear. Anyone get any thoughts on the Hoch's question? Yeah.
In the 7 habits of highly effective people, he mentions Stephen Covey, that before you can change, you have to change your perceptions. So if you wake up and realize that was a dream, but you thought it was real, then you can reflect, well, maybe I'm thinking this is real, but maybe it's not, because if I'm not changing, then if I'm not becoming a better devotee, then it means I'm still holding on to my perception of the way things are. So we have to change the way we see things in order to change as a person.
So that comes just like if you, I don't know if you ever experienced yourself when I remember being like a very young person, even in primary school, and you're thinking, okay, I'm 10-year-old now, I see the world different from I did when I was 9-year-old. And then an 11-year-old, you look back and think, when I was 10-year-old, I thought I was seeing things, you know, as they are, but now I'm seeing things more. And so that's just life. As we go on, we get more experience and we see things differently. And in Krishna consciousness, as we continue with devotional service, we're polishing the brass, and the more we keep polishing it, the more it starts to shine and shine and shine. So we could look at it today and say, okay, I've got a certain amount of advancement, more than I had before. By the mercy of Krishna, we're still in the process of Krishna consciousness. But we don't stop, we keep on going, keep on polishing, keep on cleaning the room, Chito Darpa and Marjanam, because the effect of the material world is that dust is always gathering. We have to keep on cleaning that dust every day. We clean it, and we clean it more. And even when it looks like it's clean, we still keep looking to see, is there something there to clean? As we said recently also, that Gundicha Marjanam pastime, Lord Chaitanya showed us that even when all the devotees thought there was nothing to clean, still there was mounds of dirt coming out. So the Lord will see that there's something there we have to clean out, and He'll show us, you know, that you think that that's clean, I can see something which needs to come out. And the Lord helps us in that regard. Sorry? Yeah, even when there's nothing to clean. Okay, I think we can stop there. Is there something else?
There's an online comment from devotees from Welsh. They're saying, thanks for class, Prabhu, from a group of Welsh Sankirtan boys who are all sick with the flu, though.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part you said about Sankirtan devotees.
from Wales, and they are sick with flu.
Oh. Well, material life is a disease, and sometimes we have a disease on top of the disease. But don't worry, your flu will pass and you'll be back out there again. As soon as you're able, I'm sure you go back out again. So thanks for attending the class, Prabhus. And thanks for also inspiring us to see the importance of continuing this Sankirtan movement. It's very inspiring, the Welsh devotees who are going out there on Sankirtan. And all glories to the Welsh Yatra and Tarkanath Prabhu and all the devotees who are working so nicely to please Srila Prabhupada. And liberating the Welsh people, bringing Krishna consciousness into their life. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And keep reading and distributing Prabhupada's books. And you're assured, Prabhupada says, if we dedicate our life to this Sankirtan movement, even if there's some difficulty remembering Lord Chaitanya at the time of death, he will force his way into your mind. He says, even if you can't remember Krishna, I'll get you in the back door. Okay, it's Guru ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande Haribam.
His Grace Prabhupada Prana Prabhu ki.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki.